Hello, did you know I have a Gumroad page where I'm selling a bunch of filters? If not, check it out, links in the description. I also have a Patreon where you can get them at a discounted rate and support the channel. Thank you. Welcome to another show, I'm Sid, and this is kind of an add-on to the previous video where I showed you how to do motion blur and RGB shift shaders and things like that with the render pass. I posted an effect like this on Instagram once and a few people messaged me asking how I did it, saying I should make a tutorial. At the time, I wasn't really in the mood, I couldn't be bothered, but I just made the effect that led up to it in the previous video, so I figured why not show you how to do this as well. Let's go. So we're going to start with the filter I made in the previous video, which covered motion blur, RGB shift, and the render pass to create this effect. If you haven't seen that video already, I recommend checking it out. There should be a link up here somewhere, or maybe in the description. I don't know. I might forget, but we'll see. Either way, check it out, then come back here. So before we get too crazy, the first thing I'm actually going to do is delete all of this render pass and delay frame stuff. So what we're left with is the RGB shift shader patch, the rectangle diffuse texture that we've created for this rectangle, the camera texture which is connected to all of it, and the loop animation that pulses in and out this effect for the shift shader. So now I'm going to tap this paperclip icon here, which will show us all of the patches that make up the RGB shift shader patch. As you can see, it's quite complicated, even though I'm not sure how this exactly works, but you could probably put this together yourself manually if you had enough patience and know-how, but there's no reason to because we all rely on this library for the patches that we use. What we can do though is come in here and, for example, with this 2D transform pack, which there are 3 of, we can adjust these values. So if I take the translation on the X value here and switch it from 0 to 45, then it adds a nice red tint. If I come down to this third one, I can make that 45 as well, and it makes it purple. If I take this first one and switch it back to 0, then the third one is now making it blue, and you can create a pretty cool combination of effects like that. If I switch over to the FaceTime camera, you'll see the effect's actually a little bit different. It's not blue, but it is kind of warping the camera, giving it these blue lines across the bottom. There's a lot of yellow going on. I can take this second one here. If I increase it to like 15, it makes a pretty nice effect. You can definitely mess around with this and come up with some cool stuff, but this is not exactly what I'm going to show you today. So if we back out of all this, get it to look relatively normal again, make sure that they're all on 0. One thing you should note is that if you change the patches inside of a patch, so anything inside this RGB shift shader patch, if you change it once, then anytime you copy or paste this patch and reuse it, those changes will take effect in those repeat patches as well. So be aware of that. And now if we go back, then I can undo, hit refresh, and start looking through some of the other effects that we can create. So basically all we're going to do is play around with what we already have. So if I take this output here that's currently connected to the top of our mix and just move it down here into the alpha input instead, you'll see immediately that we get this kind of trippy visual. I can also take the output from our camera texture here, the RGBA, and drag it into the top of the mix where the RGB shift used to be. And we get this weird paintbrush effect with the head, which I think is kind of cool. We can switch over to the FaceTime camera and you'll see the effect's a little bit different. It's not quite as pronounced, but that's because we have a background and, you know, everything else is going on with the other effects. But it's still pretty cool. I think it has this kind of, it leaves a trail as you move, which I think is pretty cool. What you can do next is open up this patch by clicking the small, I guess it's a paperclip icon, I'm not really sure, just double tap on that and it opens up the patches. Any patch that you find in the AR library can usually be opened up and you'll see all the patches that make it up. You know, you can dig around in them and change some of the values, which is what we're going to do now. So if we take this first 2D transform and for example change the X value to 45, you'll see in the preview here you get a much cooler effect, but over here it does make a change and it's kind of trippy. Again, just changes the color at first. We can also change the pivot points to maybe 1, and if we do the same for the second one down here, we can change that to minus 45, creates a bit of a weird effect in here. Change this one here to 90. It's pretty nuts, right? Sometimes you'll have to refresh the effect to see what the actual result is. It's a little bit bizarre. It does kind of break them after a while, but you can do the same for this one too. Let's change this to like 15 and this one to minus 100. You see, this is almost absolute nonsense now. You can't see anything at all in the preview over here. But if I hit refresh, then we get this kind of interlaced, pretty trippy effect. I don't know. I like it. We can undo those, go back to something more reasonable, all of those at 0. We can take the swizzles, for example, where the current setting on this one is OY01. And we can change that to, I don't know, RGB1. That creates another trippy effect. I like the word trippy, can you tell? Hit refresh. You will notice that the preview over here is different from the preview over here. This is what you see on your device when you export it to test, and this is underneath the render pass. So once you pass it through the render pass, then this is the final result, and it's why we're getting this motion blur and these screen tears and all these kind of weird effects. It even breaks after a while. My computer can't handle it that well. But yeah, this is not what you're getting. This is what you're getting. So now we can take the transform again. We can change it to 45. Change this one to 45. You see it has a different, slightly different effect. Same here. So if we take this and we change it to, what was this one before? And we change this one to OY01, we get another kind of crazy thing going on. If I switch back to the model, I'm going to hit refresh and you'll see it really breaks down almost immediately. But I think it's kind of cool. As I said, it's worth playing around. Now if I change this one here to 00Z1, yeah, there's not much to it. You can change the pivot point on this one again, maybe to 4. Change the transform on this to -45. You get something pretty nuts. Hit refresh. It will freeze over, switch back to the FaceTime camera, breaks the whole top half of the screen. You get a lot of crazy stuff just from playing around in here. The RGB shift shader is one of my favorites to mess around with, especially in combination with other patches. I'll undo that now so you can actually see my face again. Now we can transform that, and it's kind of nuts, right? Same with this, you can set the range from 0.1 to 1. Up here, any number that you can adjust or any value or anything like that. Basically that's it. Like, I know it's not the exact effect I showed you at the start of the video, but if you take any patch in the AR library and open it up using this little paperclip icon, then you can mess around with them and edit them. And if you configure things slightly differently to how they are in any of the tutorials I've shown you, you will be able to create some pretty gnarly effects. So yeah, if I was to take this output and move it back up to here, and then connect this back into the right place over here, whoa, what's going on, right? It's kind of just zooming in and out. I don't know. It's weird. I don't even know what's happening anymore. I've messed around with it so much. But that's the point. This is not really a tutorial and more just advice that says, you know, play around. That's how I learned how to do all this, is just by messing around and digging into the patches, seeing what connects where and what kind of cool effects I can make. I'm not even sure what's happening right now, but I like it. You know what I mean? So I'm probably going to export this as an AR project. So if I come up here to File, you can upload and export. And instead of actually doing that, you can just export the file. So now I can save this as weird project. So if I hit save, that'll go to my desktop now as .ar export, which means that I can open that up and mess around with it without having messed up the original project that I was working on. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll undo this. We'll go back to something a little creepier, a little more trippy. Whoa ho ho. But yeah, if you like this, don't forget to leave a like, leave a comment. Let me know what you thought. This was a strange one. It's supposed to be just a quick video. I'm not sure how long it's actually going to be. Try out a bunch of weird stuff. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Peace.